a burnout video. I need an intro for the next video.
Alright, so we're going to get started back on the F-Series today. Last time we went over a little bit of getting our wiring in, getting the engine in. Went ahead and put the stock radiator in here just to see what we're looking like as far as room. It's all looking pretty good. But today we're going to be going over some of the basic fuel system stuff, what we're going to be doing on this car. I'm going to show you what we do for a basic NA setup. And we're also maybe going to be trying to fire it up. Let's get started. Alright, so these are some of the parts we're going to be using. This is really simple. So this is just a equal energy 6AN PTFE hose kit. So it comes with a couple straights, 90s, all the different types of fittings. This is PTFE. I've had good luck with these. Some people hate them. It's worked pretty well for me. I've had these fittings fail just like every other fitting I've ever used. Vibrant, Summit, Earls. If you are real rough with these, they'll leak at the O-ring. So, but I've had good luck with them, so I continue to use them. And we have a GM flex fuel sensor, OEM flex fuel sensor, two 3/8 EFI quick connects to adapt the flex fuel sensor to 6AN, and then we have a 6AN to 5/16 adapter to go onto the BMW line up underneath the car. So we'll get this adapter up on the car, and then we'll start making a line to go up to the rails. I always like to use the adapter fittings that have the threaded in retainer, not the plastic clips, so you don't have any chance of them popping out. Don't want a fuel leak anywhere in the engine bay, never good. So the stock BMW fuel lines on the E90s and all these F-Series are all these 5/16 quick connects. This is a male version. Up at the fuel hat, up in the tank, like if you're doing an E90, you're going to use the same thing, but you need the male quick connect fitting. So these are simple. They just slide on here. Yeah. Then the retainer drops in here. We'll get threaded up into this fitting so it can't come off. So then we have adapted our stock line to the 6AN. Really simply like that. Then we'll go ahead and figure out what we're going to do to run this up to the flex fuel sensor and then to the rail. On this flex fuel sensor, again, these are quick connect fittings on here as well, so we're just going to use to the adapters on either end of this, but these are 3/8 6AN. I've made like 900 horsepower on 6AN feeds before, so if you're ever doing it, just go ahead and do something bigger, do 8, but 6AN on this NA combination is perfectly fine. So I like to go ahead and just get these fittings on here without the hose first, figure out the orientation of everything, and then you can mark your lines. This is going to be going up straight, fastened to the frame rail right here. So I'll drop the car down, see where we're going to mount that flex fuel sensor, and then up to the rail. So we're still going to have to wire this into our ECU. We're running the GM F30, so we'll have to pin this out. This gets power ground and the signal to the ECU. I don't have a whole lot of room up here. Maybe I'll end up just mounting this down on the frame rail, use a real short piece of line here, and then just come up. And then on here I'm using these Holley fuel rails that we had. I had LS1 stock rails, but since we're running the LS3 coils, the outlet is like right here and it runs into this coil, so we're just going to run our crossover either in the front or the back, and then just cap one end of the rail. This end's capped right now, and then our feed line in the back. And this is just a deadhead system using the factory BMW fuel pump and fuel hat. Alright, so we're just gonna do the crossover in the front. I'm gonna cap this back side of the rail, and back here we got a 90-degree fitting that's gonna go up and down and around, so our feed line will be kind of hidden. I could put the crossover at the back and cap this, but then I have to deal with the fuel line up here by the alternator and everything, so it's easier just to do it back in here where I can tuck it away from everything, go down there by the heater lines, wrap down, catch our flex fuel sensor, and then hook right up. So go ahead and put this 90-degree fitting on a piece of hose, and then start to run it down, and we can mark the other end. If you've never put together one of these fittings before, it's pretty simple. You just cut the hose off with a piece of tape, slide this little nut down the hose, and then this ferrule is included. It pushes on and bottoms out in the PTFE. Then you take this little tool that's in the kit and go in, seat it in the PTFE, make room for your fitting to go in. Make sure you put a little anti-seize on these fittings. Get it all over yourself. A little oil on the end of this so it slides in nice. Slides in like that. And then this goes up and tightens up. And you just tighten this till it bottoms out and it crushes that little ferrule on the end of that PTFE hose. And you're done with the fitting. So we've got our hose made up on our whole spool with the 90 on there. We're going to feed this up from the bottom, get it hooked up to the rail, route this down, then we're going to mark where we need to cut it with a piece of tape, cut it off, put the next fitting on. All right, shoved our hose up there from the bottom. Get this routed around. This PTFE hose is pretty stiff, so be afraid to kind of mold it as you need, and when it warms up, it gets a little easier to bend. This one put on the back of the rail. And then we're gonna leave this hose some slack here. Go up and around, probably follow these brake lines down and go down by the fuel rail on the outside. Go down by the fuel rail on the outside of the heater hoses. I'll go down below and mark it. All right, so I think what we're gonna do is basically just have this flex fuel line, or the flex fuel sensor, be right in this line, kind of near the frame rail right there. So it'll be up in this area, free out of the way. I can get to the connector. There's not really much heat down here since they're stock manifolds, so I'm gonna go ahead and mark on this piece of line, piece of blue painter's tape, and then we'll cut it off, put a straight fitting on there. Then we'll have to make up a short section to go from there to here, and we'll be done. The other thing that's really important, make sure you blow these lines out, especially up front after the filter. You don't want anything in these. Clog your injectors up instantly. We've got our little short line made up. It's gonna go to the rails, down to the flex fuel sensor. Get this up in there, and then we just need to make up the one line that's gonna go from the flex fuel sensor down to the stock line, and we'll be all set. All right, there's our last little line. Get that one thrown on there. We're running out of light. The fuel system's about done, and we'll pick up tomorrow and try to get this thing fired up. More things on here. Got an intake tube on here with our MAF. Probably don't need a jumper pack yet, but we had to rescale this thing for, harness was set up for an LS3 map sensor. We got an LS1 map sensor wired in for now, and our E38 wired up. Got pretty much everything needed just to get the fire up, but we got the BMW pedal wired in here. This is just temporary, just to get this thing figured out. But starter, I guess we got to key it on. Right now we're just jumping power to the ECU right here. Keyed on, and then let's see if we can get it started. All right. Get the rest of it hooked up. We'll get spitting some oil out of our dipstick hole, but need to get the O2 sensors on it and keep going.
so we got the Y pipe pretty much wrapped up. This was pretty simple. We had V-banded these Gen 5 manifolds. That always makes it easy. This one, we had to kick over a little weird to clear the trans lines. With a 90 on this fitting, we'll have plenty of room. This is just temporary, so we could fire it up, loop the lines, kick it down and over. Plenty of room in the chassis, higher than the pan, so that's not a problem. Crossed over here, 2.5 to 3 merge. And this side is pretty much just a straight shot. So we'll weld this side out, and then once all this stuff moves and this is welded, we'll make this last joint, because there's not going to be any flex in between here. But there's a good enough length between the merge and the V-bands where there'll be a little flex in the stainless, so shouldn't have an issue getting the V-bands back on. But we're going to tie it into the factory exhaust right back here. All right, we got the exhaust finished up. This is the 2.5-inch V-band that goes up to the Gen 5 manifold that you might have saw. You got an O2 sensor on both sides. Since these are stock ECU, need the narrow bands. Comes down to a 2.5 to 3 Y pipe, and then this is a section of the stock exhaust I used because it fit and it had a flat where I needed clearance. Section of 3.5 that I put where the stock resonator was because I had already cut it out thinking it was a cat, and then back to the stock exhaust. So get it back up in the car now, see how it all fits.